I quit. Hi, my name's Blue Boy and I'm an ultralight addict, and today I'm giving it up. Well, when I was young, I spent a lot of time in the outdoors in my Pathfinder group, which is like a scouts group. I grew up camping and hiking and loving every minute. It's some of my favorite childhood memories. Then when I grew up and got into the world of work, I didn't go into the outdoors much for 20 years. And then about 3 or 4 years ago, I got put on the Year 9 camp. I'm a high school teacher, and it's a hike. And it allowed me to rediscover my love of the outdoors and hiking. And so I got hooked once again. I'd been looking for a hobby. I'd tried mountain biking, I'd tried model aeroplane flying, I'd tried heaps of different things, squash and tennis, but nothing really stuck. Nothing until hiking came along. And I went out, I bought all new gear, and it was all pretty heavy stuff. So I went round 2, the same as lots of people do, and I bought all ultralight stuff, and that has basically not ever stopped. I've been absolutely obsessed with ultralight gear. Even worse than the amount of gear I've bought, I've become like a little bit of a snob in terms of what I allow myself to carry. I'm loath to walk with anything more than 10 pounds as my base weight, or if I allow myself to hike with more gear than that, I feel guilty. In fact, what has precipitated my giving up being an ultralight hiker has been my last hike. I went to Kosciuszko and my gear was probably in the 15 to 20 pound range, and I felt so jolly guilty about it. I was ashamed of myself. It's just like Blue Boy Ultralight, that's what I called my channel, was, I wasn't even able to be ultralight. Like, I took a heavier sleeping bag because it was going to be freezing. I took a heavier down jacket. I took extra, safety gear for the kids' sake and all that sort of stuff. And my pack ended up being as heavy as my kids. And that was an abomination to me. So I felt really guilty about it. And I've come to realize, thanks in part to Dan's I Quit video, and thank you, Dan, by the way, for putting that out, because that was really the catalyst for helping me give it up as well. So I told Dan that I was thinking of joining him, and this is what he had to say.
Hey Brennan, I know exactly how you feel, because I used to feel just as guilty. I'd go out with like super overweight, and I'm talking backpacking, but I'd go out really heavy and would try to be ultralight, and was feeling like I wasn't going to fit in as a backpacker and all that stuff, because everybody says you have to be at a certain weight, and if you're not, you don't know what you're doing. Well, not everybody, but it's sad that the community has sort of divided itself. But I think there's a lot more people, honestly, that just realize that it's time to hike your own hike and just get out there, have a great time. Who cares what you bring? If you made it and you didn't die, you had a great time, that's a win.
I totally agree, Dan. We're on the same page. Now back to you, Blue Boy Brendan. Now I've realised that my priorities were wrong. My priorities were, weight was the number one thing. If it wasn't light enough, I wasn't prepared to carry it. But after going on lots of ultralight hikes, I've realised that my priority is wrong. That weight priority should be second or third down the list. The first thing should be you're looking for a great fun outdoor experience. And weight is a part of that, a big part of that. But the most important thing is that your gear and the stuff that you take should be functional. It should serve its function first. And then the third priority should be the weight. Minimise the weight once you've got the function right. So from now on, I'm going to not so much care about or fuss or be obsessed with like having the lightest stuff. I'm still going to be, keen to get stuff as light as I can, but the function of the gear has to be first. And that last Kosciuszko hike that I went on showed me the value of carrying extra gear, because lo and behold, on that hike where I carried more weight than an ultralighter would normally carry, I wasn't cold and I felt great. So my extra weight, my heavier pack, was absolutely worth it. I've decided that I'm going to allow myself the luxury of carrying more gear and allowing myself not to feel guilty about it. Here's some examples of gear that I have chosen and will choose to carry that's not strictly ultralight but is lightweight, but it's got great functionality. So let's have a look at these gear examples. The first thing is Pillows. Goodness me, I've tried a dozen or so ultralight pillow systems. Inflatable pillow. Lots of ultralight hikers feel guilty about carrying a 2 or 3 ounce inflatable pillow, but you know what? I can't sleep on an inflatable pillow because it just feels unstable to me, and it's actually too thick. I need a really thin pillow. So I've long battled with this. I've actually found the right pillow for me. It's this foam thermarest compressible pillow, but it's like 250 grams, which is like 8 ounces or something like that. And I've battled in my head so often with carrying that weight for a pillow. But I've realised I took it on my Cozzy hike into the cold, and it worked fantastic. So I'm going to allow myself to carry a heavier, lightweight pillow and just benefit from the better sleep that it gives me. The second thing I'm going to allow myself to carry heavier is not a lightweight titanium pot, because I've got lots of lightweight titanium pots, but I don't like any of them. I'm going to allow myself to carry a heavier, bigger aluminium alloy pot that is bigger, doesn't burn, and it's got a more stable handle. So, I mean, that's probably twice the weight of what this is. You know, that's only about 80 grams. This one's like 150 grams. So it's 2 or 3 times. But titanium pots, I mean, they burn easy. They're always hard to pick up. They've always got sort of dicky, handles. When you try and drink from them, they often burn your mouth. And often the capacity, the size is often really small, and my food's fallen out of it. And I just don't enjoy using titanium pots. But I used this one recently, the Cedar Summit Alpha Pot 1.1, which is a 1.2 litre aluminium pot with a pivot lock mechanism, which makes a really stable handle. And I just loved using it. The function was better, it felt safer, it had a good capacity, I didn't burn stuff. I just really enjoyed using it more than any titanium pot I've ever carried. So I'm going to allow myself the extra weight to carry a heavier pot that I much prefer using. It's still lightweight, but it's not like titanium lightweight. The third thing I'm going to allow myself more weight to carry is a warmer, heavier sleeping bag. I've got lots of ultralight quilts and sleeping bags. Here's one of my favourite, the Catabatic Gear Palisade 30, and I've used it lots, and I really like it, but when it's cold it just doesn't cut it. Even like a model that's got more down in it, like the high rating one, I still don't think it's going to cut it for me, because it's basically not sealed, and I'm a real cold fish. So on the last hike I went on, I used this one, which is my heaviest lightweight sleeping bag. It's a Sierra Design Zissou sleeping bag, and it's probably twice the weight of that thing. The Catabatic is about 600 or 700 grams. This was about 1.1 kilos, so it's almost double. But you know what? I wasn't cold, and it got down to minus 7 degrees Celsius, which is about 18 degrees Fahrenheit. And I wasn't cold, and I realized this is the most important thing, being comfortable, functional, over lightweight. I've frozen my ass off in that other thing many times, and I'm just done with it. So I'm allowing myself extra weight, extra down, like Jason from The Best Backpacker has said in one of his videos. He'll never not carry enough warm down, because it's just not worth being cold. The fourth thing I'm going to allow myself more weight to carry is a wider, warmer pad. I've got the very popular Thermarest X lights, and in fact this one is like a wide one, a max one, which has got the not tapered. It's got a speed valve there, but it's still only a 20-inch wide, and I've tried sleeping on narrow pads and I just can't do it. I sleep on my side, so my arms fall off, my butt falls out, my knees are on the side, they're cold. So I ditch the 20-inch wide pads and I allow myself to carry a 25-inch wide pad, which is just adequate for me. It's probably, those 20-inch pads are probably, 400 or 500 grams or less. These ones are 600-700 grams plus, and so it's almost, it's close to double the weight, but the comfort is worth it. And I slept on this big Agnes one recently, and it was actually gave me a much better sleep than any X-Lite has ever given me. So I'm ditching the X-Lites, and I'm looking for something that's more comfortable. It's got higher thickness, and great comfort. The fifth thing I'm going to allow myself more weight to carry is my Puffy Jacket. I've got lots of ultralight puffy jackets like this Montbell Superior down jacket, and this is great if the conditions are mild, but if it's sort of cold at all, just doesn't cut it for me. In any sort of lightweight, like ultralight jacket, I feel the cold. I lost a lot of body weight, so I'm going to allow myself to carry a much heavier, much warmer jacket like this one. This is like a sleeping bag on steroids. I think it's like 380 grams, which is like almost twice the weight of this one. But man, I could walk around camp at freezing 0 degrees Celsius on that cozy camp, and I slept in this thing, and boy, it was gold. I was so much warmer. So even though I did feel guilty about carrying a puffy jacket that was twice the normal weight, it paid for itself in terms of what it did for me. It kept me warm, and that's much more important than, you know, a lighter pack. So that's what I'm going to allow myself to carry in the future when it's cold, a heavier, warmer puffy jacket. The sixth thing I'm going to allow myself more weight to carry is a heavier tent. Now, I've got lots of ultralight tents. I got lots of tents at all. This is my favorite like lightweight tent these days. It's the Z-Pax Plexamid, and I do love it. However, there are some downsides to it, and you know, like you got limited headspace, and you do feel cramped, and you know, it's sometimes a little bit challenging to set up on tent platforms and stuff like that. So my last hike, I took this tent, which is the Hyperlight Mountain Gear Ultimid 2, which has got heaps more space. And I use that just as the shelter, as the fly in -7 degrees, and I was perfect. Now I've now picked up the inner tent for it, or the inner net, like bug net for it, called the half insert. And so both of those things combined are about 2 pounds, they're about £1 pound each. So that's twice the weight of the Plexamid, but like the functionality, the comfort, like I've got a whole split side to sleep on, and then I've got a whole other side for gear, and that's just it just helps me keep organized. It makes better use of my time, because I'm not sort of like double, triple and quadruple handling everything like you are in a smaller tent. So I'm going to allow myself the luxury of carrying a heavier tent, often a double wall tent, in the future. So that's the next thing. The seventh thing I'm going to allow myself more weight to carry is stakes. I've got lots of ultralight stakes, and I've broken lots of ultralight stakes. These had been my favourite for quite a while. They're the Z-Pax carbon stakes with aluminium tip and head, and I thought these were indestructible until I destructed one. It's just snapped in half. I was hammering it in, which, you know, you're not really supposed to do, but sometimes in hard ground that's what you got to do. So ultralight stakes they're just not very strong. So I'm going to allow myself to carry heavier stakes, and these are my current favourite ones. They are Hyperlight Mountain Gear 8-inch aluminium hungerdungers, and like they're awesome. I love them. You can hammer them in, and they're about twice the weight of these. So 8 of those are about 50 grams. 8 of these are about 100 grams, but they're much more durable. They're much more flexible. Having said that, in the super cold weather, when I was pulling these out, I put a titanium shepherd's hook through there and pulled those out. The ends pulled off because they just must be like sealed on via like compression's friction. But once it warmed up and I put them back on, they seem to stay on. But overall, they're a lot more durable, and I don't think I'll snap those the way I often snap any sort of ultralight carbon or aluminium stakes in the past. The last thing I'm going to allow myself extra weight in carrying, and this is a lead from Dan, is a chair. Like, I've bought a whole bunch of like lightweight chairs over the years, and I've used them in camp, but I've never actually hiked with them, because like this is the lightest weight like portable chair you can get. It's £1 pound. It's a Helinox Chair Zero. I've never carried it on a hike because I just felt too guilty in carrying that extra pound of weight. But after hearing and seeing Dan that that's one of his priorities and one of his comfort factors, I agree. Like, whenever I'm in camp or around and I get to sit in a chair, I'm so much more comfortable. So I'm going to allow myself at times the luxury of carrying extra weight for the comfort it gives me in camp of a chair. Obviously probably not for a through hike, but for like weekend hikes like Dan does and like what I do a lot of, a chair is really there.
I used to bring this tiny little stool that my buddy used to make fun of me and tell me it was the doll stool for like dolls, and he would bust out his REI like 2.5, 3-pound chair. And I would sit on my teeny tiny little stool and I would be so uncomfortable, and he would be on this beautiful, awesome, comfortable chair. And I remember thinking to myself, I was really wanting to sit in that chair. And so I went back home and I found the most lightweight chair I could possibly find and ended up buying the Helinox Chair Zero. I bought it a couple of years ago, actually, right when it first came out. And I loved it so much, I actually bought a second one for my wife. One of them ended up in a fire, but still works. But man, I will never go backpacking without a chair ever again. Who wants to sit on a log, the wet ground, a rock, when you could be sitting on a chair?
So there we go. That's why I've given up ultralight hiking. I'm still going to be, very sort of aware of how much things weigh and minimize it. And sometimes I might be ultralight, but I'm not going to get myself all hung up about being ultralight all the time, every time. My priorities are going to be enjoy my outdoor experience, take gear that performs the function to keep me adequately comfortable and be able to have a sleep really well and stay warm, and then make sure that those things that do that for me are at the minimal weight possible. So that's why I've given up ultralight hiking. I want to have a good time in the outdoors and I want to be comfortable. So thanks, Dan Becker, for your lead. Love to hear what you viewers have to say about this. What sort of gear are you prepared to carry extra weight for in order to improve your enjoyment of your outdoor experience? I'd love to hear what you've got to say and your comments down in the comments below. Blue Boy, out.